Right, so just a little background which we have dealt with in the last week. Okay, in the last week we discussed, say something about when we are storing some information or knowledge, okay, we are storing the meaning, right, rather than exact format or exact wording, right? So that's why we are keep the information in economic way. We can't remember the detail of every scene or detail of sentence. We can't do it, but only we can pick up some of the important meanings to store. Get it? So that is one of the experiments we did explain last week. Say memory for meaning is no difference, but there is some style very difficult to remember. So that's why I just used many of the photo or sentence. And you remember this experiment, the Mandela's experiment, people can remember the difference of the photo because this photo is related to the meaning of this whole picture, right? So in the previous atlas map looks like social study, but this one looks like some of the different teaching course, right? That's why many people can remember the difference between the previous and this one in terms of meaning. Okay, so what you have to remember is meaning is we are trying to save, okay, not the detail. Okay, that is more important information. So let's come up with your first question. Let me know. This one is also neat if we had to label it. So, okay, this doodle doesn't have any meaning, but when you have labeled it, we can remember better. In Korean poem, what is it? 국화꽃. Yeah, Korean poem is when I give you a name, you are something, right? So likewise, this one, when you give a name on this picture, we can easily remember that. Okay? So, the name is important. Right, that is first quiz. That is about the map rotating one. Okay? The rotating map represents to the modern Inca navigation system employs one of this one. Isn't it? That is very easy way. So, turn on your cricket. So egocentric is something about, so when I see this way, the map also rotating to see exactly what I see, so I can make a matching with what I see and what is seen on the map. Okay, same information, congruent information, right? So that is why we have to represent the information in egocentric way. We are pretty much ego, individual, okay, selfish. Okay, we are selfish people. Okay. The second question, you need some of the information, likewise this one. Okay. So there is some of the screenshot of a mobile phone. So as you can see, some of the icon has a name, some of don't. What is difference? Okay. So which one is better? So we learned how to interpret which one is better using some of the experimental result, which can lead to our second question is, an icon with a matching label would help us to recognize the meaning of the icon. Okay, what experiment proved this information design convention? So there are 4 experiments in beginning of chapter 5. Okay, so I can give 3 minutes to find it. Okay, the Mandela's experiment. The power, this one, right? So that help when we have a label of picture, we can easily remember between the image and meaning, right? So, okay, good on you. Right, today's one from that point on is keep talking about one issue. How we can store the meaning. Okay? So point is whether we can exactly remember the image of photo or image of scene in here, or we just retrieve meaning of the scene. The many of the outcome coherently say we are storing the meaning. So one of the experiments to support this theory is Gansbacher's 1985 experiment. Experiment is very simple. So participant had seen one of this picture. One of this picture. Okay, one of this picture. For example, they saw this photo. Okay, this picture. And then sometimes later, they saw one of this one again. Okay, it could be the same direction or different direction. Okay, looking face direction is different. One is this way, the other one is this way. Okay, exactly the opposite one. So, idea about this experiment: if people can remember the meaning of this picture, okay, what would happen? They can respond quickly, isn't it? Because they can remember the meaning. Okay, there's a big box like a Christmas party, okay? Right, the big present in the morning. But some people, I mean, if people cannot remember the detail of the photo, it takes a long time, isn't it? So for example, they can't see the difference between the photo. Right? It's very simple. I needed this kind of experiment design for your essay 4. Okay, that is very simple experiment, but they can say whether we are remembering meaning or detail of the photo. Okay, so likewise, so the conclusion is exactly say people remember the meaning. So they can quickly answer, okay, so there is no difference between them, but they can't find any difference in the direction. Likewise, Anderson, our textbook author, has also made an experiment with a sentence, not image. Okay? With a sentence. So what they heard, the participant heard about this one. The missionary shot the painter. Shoot the painter. Okay? And then they also heard one of these sentences. Okay? Like some people heard this one, and the other one is this one, and the other one this one. Okay? The number 1 and number 2 doesn't have any meaning difference, right? Similar meaning or exactly the same meaning, right? With what they heard. Isn't it, Taekyung? Yeah, same. But number 3 and number 4 is different way, right? It's not the same. Right? And then what they have found also, people can easily find this one, but this one doesn't say any difference. Which means they are understanding the meaning from 1 and 2 to say, okay, there are no difference what they heard. Actually, this number 2 isn't they heard, isn't it? What they heard is only this sentence. But even though they believe they heard this one. They heard this sentence, right? Only they heard this sentence, but after some time later, they can also remember this one is what they heard. Because meaning is the exactly same, they can't exactly retrieving what you heard from the experimenter. But number 3 and number 4, they can easily pick up this one is not what they heard. From this outcome, we can say, oh, people can remember the meaning, not exact sentence. Okay, we are put the meanings in here rather than exact wording, which will be the same congruent outcome with previous experiment with this one. This one is visual image, and this one is a verbal image, or verbal information in somewhere. So we can say, even though picture, we store the meaning, even the verbal information like what we said in here, the same thing is stored in our memory of meaning. Okay, that is outcome of Anderson's experiment just before. Okay, so now you're wondering about if that is the things, how we can make good memory. Okay, that's what you need for your many exam situation, right? So probably stocking or so many of the people's demonstrating their talent of memory is using mnemonic technique. So what they did, what they normally do to improve their memory, of the scene or information is they're using very special technique called the numeric technique. So it is easier to remember less meaningful materials if it is converted into more meaningful stuff. The many of talented people to memory is using some of the spatial information. Okay, they imagine a building. Okay, some information goes into the first floor, they imagine it. Okay, like a big storage area. Okay, something, the numeric technique is using some of the space. They imagine some of the space, like storage area. Okay, so they intentionally put A information in here, B information in here, C information in here. So they put everything using a spatial information to locate. If someone asks, what is about C, they can directly go to C room to retrieve everything. Such as, of course, this kind of keyword method which I named it. When I use the manure, it's really difficult for me to remember that. Manure is 퇴비 in Korean. Manure, 퇴비. Okay? So I remember this manure with the Manchester United. Because that is not what I heard. I mean, I can't remember, many mistakes. So I'm trying to remember manure with the Manchester United. So when I try to say manure, I'm just come across with Manchester United so that I can say manure. Like when you make a shopping list, okay, if you need some memory skill, maybe if you need buy tomato and basil and noodle, you just only remember spaghetti. So if you remember the spaghetti, you can buy 3 items at once. Okay. Another one, spatial reference, is this one. It's really hard to remember the pi, isn't it? 3.1.4 something. So that we can put some of the space information. The number 14 is my mom's house. Number 159 is my birthday. And 92 is my first 2-digit number of car registration. So using these kinds of many of the numeric skill, we can improve the many information storage. I mean, we can store more efficiently within our brain.
Professor, is there any relationship between Manure and Manchester United?
Sounds similar, isn't it? Sounds similar. For me, so that's why you develop your own technique, right? If you learn Italian or Chinese, probably it's very difficult to say it, right? So that you have to individually make it your own referencing system. So that's what I used. Is it similar? The first 3 letters is similar. Manure. And then I can just make a link. Manchester is really dirty. Does it keep recording? So Manchester is the clean city. So yeah, I've been there a couple of times. So that I can just make a link with, okay, a little bit dirty and manure. Likewise. Thank you. Right? So that is the technique. We can use it. And we can go into the most important part of chapter 5. Okay, so now we understand meaning is stored. Okay, rather than exact wording or exact image. Question is how it is stored. How it is represented in here. Nobody knows yet. So we have 2 theories. Okay, one is semantic network and the other one is schema. Semantic network and schema. Both of them are using in computer science. That's why, even though I graduated cognitive psychology, I'm working last 7 years in computer science department. The reason is many of the computer scientists need a cognitive psychological aspect to copy or mimic our human brain to make artificial intelligence. Okay? So, cognitive psychologists developed 2 things. One is semantic network and the other one is schema. Both of them are using in computer science to make artificial intelligence. In more detail, cognitive architecture. The dream of computer scientists is make a cognitive architecture. Exactly looks like human being. How we receive the information and how we process it. So John Anderson make ACT R. So that is one of fantastic, the cognitive architecture. And the other one is Number Hart is made SOA. SOAR. So you probably come across with these two major cognitive architecture, is SOAR and ACT-R. Two rival cognitive architecture in computer scientists. Okay, so you can find two of the information. There are big debate in conference or anytime. So many of the understanding from cognitive psychology are in there. Like memory, working memory, declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, semantic knowledge, episodic knowledge is in this SOAR and ACT-R. So that's the thing. So now we're going into the really difficult, it's not difficult, it's a really important concept in knowledge representation. To understand it, we need a proposition. Okay? So many of the people, many of the psychologists believing that, right, we can't remember the whole meaning in an exact sentence, right? Probably we can nuggetize, make a nugget, small item. Okay? The knowledge can be represented with a very unit knowledge. Divide and conquer. Right? We have long sentence, long meaning. We can't remember whole meaning, so we can just cut it down. Okay? Digestible area. Okay? Some small part. So that means proposition. The smallest unit of knowledge that can stand as a separate assertion. And then we can use the proposition to represent all the meaning. Of course, believing is seeing, right? So I made an example. So that is knowledge you have to remember. Oh, that's what I written in my secondary school. One of the novels, the beginning of novels. Nobody inspired. Oh, that's true. Okay. Remember that we have 4 sentences. Okay, we have 4 sentences. And then what happened? Oh yeah, sorry. The next one is English version. Sorry. Okay, really sorry. Okay. That is what I had in my secondary school. I have someone I'm loving for. I want to stay next to someone I'm loving for. I'm remembering the person where she might be, though I cannot see or touch her. She makes me, I'm alive. Beauty, isn't it? Oh, how can I write down in secondary school? Amazing. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, that's the knowledge. How can I store this information? So that is the question. Yeah? So you know that what I'm saying, right? You can imagine it somewhere, right? Right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, okay? So you can make your own situation like that. But how this knowledge is stored in here? So proposition can say this one. Okay? So I can just say, proposition is normally, that is about the verb or adjective, something like that. So that is relation to link between this object. Okay, I love someone thing. Someone and next need to be stay. Okay, she, the place must be remembered. Okay, and invisible. That means love or see. Or intouchable, love and she. Likewise, this one is meaning, that is proposition. What we know, some nuggetized information. In Korean, likewise this one. Okay. Right? Okay, that is point. That is propositional representation. So my question is this one. So question is, where is it? 창어, 동어, right? 동어, right? Have you seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of things, but it's differently, right? But many of us probably will say, okay, that is the thing. Probably I can imagine it, right? I'm remembering her where she might be, though I cannot see or touch her. Even though you haven't seen this sentence exactly, but your knowledge is very similar with that, isn't it? Because we have something in here, or something in here, but using combination of your knowledge, you make this one as your knowledge. Get it? Jiung, you get it? Jiung, you understand it? No? Don't get to sleep. Okay, important thing. Right. The propositional representation can say, even though you never heard or never studied a particular sentence or particular meaning, using your interpretation, you can make new knowledge. Okay? Am I right? So if you combine these four sentence or five sentence, you can you can infer this one is the knowledge you have. You have inference technique. You have inference skill. Inference 추론. Okay? So, what the propositional representation says, represent memory for complex sentence in terms of memory for simple and abstract propositional unit, which we say relation and argument, like a function. People tend to remember the proposition they encounter, but are insensitive to the actual combination of proposition, which means even though you haven't seen this, you didn't see this sentence before, right? You can make this one is when you have seen or when you have already know. Okay, that is our knowledge representation. That is one suggestion from our cognitive psychologist. Propositional analysis can give us what knowledge might be in somewhere. Okay? Now it's going into the property network. So that is kind of argument thingy, like, okay. So this one is some kind of relationship, and there is object thingy. So they are linking between this relationship. That is propositional analysis, which you don't remember. You don't need to remember the detail, but you just understand the concept of the propositional analysis. And network is network. Likewise. So that is example from our textbook. Okay, Lincoln, the agent, Lincoln is some relationship with Lincoln is President of United States, okay, US, and the time is wartime. Likewise, using this one, a network representation, which you industrial engineering is really good at drawing this network type of knowledge. So we can represent the knowledge with like that ways or this way. Okay, that is network approach. That is simply the representation approach, descriptive approach, right? The benefit about this one is things. Okay, for you guys, I just make it. Okay, so you can have a look. So idea about the knowledge representation in propositional network is and 나의 사랑하는 사람, right? I am lover, and lover next wish to stay. So you can combine these two with the same entity is called the lover to make one. So perhaps people can have this kind of nuggetized information network, and then when they needed it, they can combine with some common factor. Get it? Yonghyun, get it? Okay. So that is beauty about knowledge network. Say when we have this kind of two different network, that is easy to combine or easy to separate them out. Okay, so interesting experiment is this one. Whether we have actually that kind of network. Okay, so that is idea of propositional network. So next thing about this one is experiment done by whether we have actually propositional network. So we need experiment, we need to prove, isn't it? Right. So that is Weisberg 1969 experiment prove we may have propositional network. How? It's very simple. Say, participant heard this one. Children who are slow at bread that is cold. All the participants heard this sentence. Okay? And then, and sometime later, experimenter give a keyword. And then they have to pre-recall what could be imagined. Okay? So, idea is this one. When people can heard bread, what word they can associate? Okay, say, okay, you heard about this sentence, right? And then sometime later I give children. And then you have to say me what word you can associate with the children. Okay, when I give a bread, you have to say to me what next thing happened, right? Something what comes up in your mind, right? So using this simple experiment, what they have found, very interesting thing. When they heard about bread, okay, they can imagine cold rather than slow. But interesting point is, slow is only one difference, okay? 1, 2. Okay, the distance is only that distance. But when they heard bread, and the distance is 1, 2, 3, 4, isn't it? Much longer, much distant. Even though people can heard the cold is much later on, they can associate between bread and cold as we represented in this network. Okay? Okay, many of the networks say children and slow and bread and cold, so that when they heard bread, they can associate with the cold, and children is slow. Okay, when you look at the slow, there is a 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Even though slow is much closer to bread. The distance, what I'm saying is the distance, right? So from this simple experiment, we can say, oh, we have knowledge network in here. Likewise, this one. Somewhere. Get it? Right. So that is kind of, so propositional information can be represented in networks that display the relationship among concepts. Now we are going into the end of this chapter with very interesting two different approaches which we covered in your essay 3. A model symbol system and perceptual symbol system. And then for the perceptual symbol system, you have to know dual code theory. The things. So what we have so far seen is Basalo is talking about this one is a modal system. So look at this one. There is no modality. There is no visual information. There is no audio information in knowledge network. They just simply say that this abstract information will be stored. Okay? So this kind of knowledge representation doesn't have any modality. No visual, no audio, no tactile. Right? And some other people, in particular Basalo, say now we need a perceptual symbol system, which means the system representation include visual information or visual feature or audio feature in different ways. A model doesn't have any modality, but perceptual symbol system has a modality. Say like all information is represented in terms of modality specific way. So that include in the Fabio's 1971 study is dual code theory, which I mentioned in week 4. Okay, we have visual modality and audio modality, and this information is stored in different places. Right? That's what they propose based on the Fabio's. Probably we can represent information using modality. Get it? So in here, A modality means this one. Okay, slow, children. What is it? So there is no modality. But also say, oh, no, we can make some modality in somewhere. Make an example. This one. So this one is what I made from seeing about what I've written in 4 sentences, right? I was waiting for someone, okay, where she lives, right? So likewise, we don't know exactly that sentence because that is depending on your personal experience. But what I'm saying is in general, maybe that kind of scene is remembered in your visual modality, with the visual modality. But if you're adding up some of the sound, which reality, Rabum, reality, okay. I'm just play some of the audio information for you guys that make you understand. So at the same time, there is visual information, and then when you have audio information somewhere, that experience, that personal experience of you, right? Probably that thing stored in somewhere in your audio modality, and that image is on your visual modality. And then you have to retrieve it when you need to recall of your boy or girlfriend. That goes long. Right? Oh, that was a really famous Richard Anderson. Richard Anderson? Yeah. 라붐. The Sophie Marceau. Right. Right. That is what I want to say. Is A model versus perceptual system is maybe two competing theory to explain our knowledge representation. Perhaps many people will say, okay, Okay, A model is an alternative to A model propositional representation of meaning is that meaning is represented in a perceptual feature. If that is visual information, that goes into visual. Otherwise, that goes into audio. Of course, this one supported by neuroimage. The fMRI or neuron activation photograph will say, okay, that might happen. Okay, when they see or when they imagine some visual information, that part is more activated. Audio information, that part is activated. So neuroimage say we may have this kind of perceptual symbol system. So my essay question of 3 is related to this one. What do you believe? So if you believe A model, what experimental design, what you can do, or the other way around for the perceptual symbol system. Okay, so embodied cognition. Next one is what this John Anderson say about, okay, so now we know visual information and audio information might be separately stored in our brain, and that is knowledge representation. The next question following up is it two things are really separated or connected or something? Is it separatable? Or just one thing, but we just see this one is separable? Okay, so new idea, that is total new approach, is only 10 years old. Embodied cognition comes up. So in cognitive psychology, this one is now major issue. So it can be used in many other applications, like virtual reality system design, and what is it? The brain-computer interface. Likewise, the new interface system is using embodied cognition, which means, okay, fMRI studies say recorded brain activation while people listen to verbs that involve the face and arms and legs. For example, this one. Okay. Okay, that is a neuron activation photograph. Okay. So when participants listen to different types of verbs, when they heard about something like kick, when they just not see, just heard about kick, okay, activation is much higher. When they heard about some punch thingy, right, this activation is powerful, much better, much longer, much stronger than the other one. When they see about like green or smile, that kind of face word, say they have activation is really high. Which means even though we do not have a particular visual information there, what we just listen, we can have some higher activation in that part. The idea from this embodied cognition is this one. Okay, so motor action, okay, like action punch or kick or smile, that kinds of motor actions are linked to our perception. So that when you just simply imagine, okay, kick, Okay? So that is activated in some way, even though you haven't seen it. So if we can really retrieve this information from our brain activation, you can control everything. Okay? You can control everything. So if I say, okay, kick, right? We can make some robot to kick you out, right? So likewise, new interaction or new system interface is possible, but limitation is it's not 100% correct yet. So sometimes you can have kick and punch at the same time. So that is a little bit not accurate, so that's why we don't have such an interface yet. But one day, if we can filter out some of the information from our cognition, to retrieve information, we can make some of the new interface. The embodied cognition simply say, okay, so that is a thing. Okay. So embodied cognition is how mapping might take place between the representation. So we have two multimodal, what is it? The perceptual system of representation. This one is a modal system. So idea is this one. So if we believe our knowledge is represented in the multimodal way, maybe there are double-arrowed interpretation. When we see visual information, we can make motor information at the same time, or nearly the same time. Likewise, when you have motor, verbal, and other information modality, have a one-to-one mapping to retrieve the information from our knowledge store. That is multimodal hypothesis. But amodal hypothesis is different one. So there is some kind of moderator in here. So when we imagine or when we want to retrieve information about visual thing, we convert visual thing into meaning. Like sorrow, some abstract information. Sorrow, love, that kind of information goes into meaning, and then this abstract information generated some of the other things like motor action or verbal action or other tactile feedback. So that can happen. So these two major theory is in about knowledge representation at this time. Get it? Difficult, isn't it? But make it simple. Likewise, this one. What is this one? Huh? Icon. Icon for what? Play. So how do you know this one is icon for play? Of course we have text, right? But you can just simply, when you see this one, you try to click it, right? Because that looks like button. Okay, the embodied cognition say this one. When we have embodied cognition, when we see this image and verbal information, the text information, we probably just create it, try to click it. Isn't it? You don't want to punch it, right? You want to click. So that action is in here already. When you see visual information, that automatically generate what? Motor action. So we can't separate these two things. Get it? Understand? Right? So that means affordance concept, but later on I'm explain that is week 8, week 9, but that means when you see visual information, that cannot be separated with your motor action. That comes from this one. Visual information directly linked to the motor action. But if you believe this one, say visual information can have a meaning change with abstraction, like okay, if you have an arrowhead and looks like button, that means click. So that is another process to make a motor action. So only difference between that is whether we have multi-arrow, whether we have some kind of moderator to filter out the information from visual, verbal, and motor. No, Sana? Doesn't understand it? Hang on. So, okay. It helps you. Okay, we have various represented different perceptual motor system directly convert to one. Okay. And A modal is there is an intermediate abstract system that we have, system for converting back and forth between the perception and motor representation. Okay, that doesn't help you much. Hey, if you can understand it, how many people doesn't understand what I'm saying? I'm just doing my best to explain. That is easiest way to explain you. Okay. Okay. Maybe this one, this photo. That is image, right? What can you feel? Huh? Love. So when you look this one and then you think about abstract meaning of love, and then your motor action will say, I want to touch her, or I want to touch him, right? Because knowledge is not exactly represented like that. Okay, that is an accurate visual image. But when you see this one, your knowledge is activated. Okay, that means love, right? Okay, and love means some of the motor action or some sound. Okay, so some kind of nice, lovely message between you, boy and girl, right? So that is kind of this one. When you go back to this image, so multimodal hypothesis is say the visual image is directly linked to the verbal thing. Like when you see that image, okay, I can remember some of the verbal conversation with my boy or girlfriend, right? But this one is different. When you remember something, that visual image changes into the love, okay, and then that love goes into the verbal memory to retrieve some of the sound between a conversation between boy or girlfriend. It takes time. And it doesn't take time, much faster. But we don't know which one is right. Not yet. So many evidence say both of them are right. So that is your question, SS3. How can you prove which one is right or which one is wrong? I need your clever experimental design. Okay, that is the thing about embodied cognition. Okay, so now we're back to the Aristoteles. So Aristotle is say about we have a concept knowledge. So cognitive psychologist is trying to say, right, so we can't remember as many as information in here. Okay, so we develop what? The propositional system. We develop some kind of network system, and A-modal system and multimodal system. That's what we have developed so far. But the most important thing is we need some economy of memory, right? When you store information, you need the economical approach. So perhaps category could be the most important technique we are remembering the information. Who are we? Human being, right? So what is a human being? 2 eyes, 3 eyes, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 2 nose. How many mouths? 1, 2, 3. So when you heard about the human being, you have some kind of information, right? Human being, right? We have head, 2 legs, and 2, right? So that kinds of categorical information, if that is stored in here, that is much safer and much faster. Bird, tiger, when you heard about this one, or mammals. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? School. So when you categorize all the information in like this way, categories. Okay, so school, I know what school means. There's classroom, teachers, and student. That is the meaning of school. So you can categorize them, many of information. So that is really beauty of our knowledge representation. Beauty, isn't it? When you categorize them, you know everything. Of course, not everything, but most of them. So we can predict it. When you heard about a dog, okay, they can bark, okay? Right? That kinds of things automatically generated. So you can predict their behavior or their attitude or their nature. What problem? Categorical problem? Category gives a negative stereotype sometimes. Stereotype, you know the stereotypes? Likewise, one of the examples from our textbook is talking about when they heard about one sentence, particular, like Elizabeth didn't good at math score, the mathematics score, okay, math score. But the next sentence is like Peter doesn't have any good scores. But when you heard about these two different sentences, the people can imagine that, okay, female is not good at math, male has really good at math. So that kind of categorical information gives some negative information to you guys, such as this one. I'm the person who loves to play outside. The things that I love to play are football, baseball, and athlete. When you heard about this sentence, many of you will believe I means boy rather than girl. But of course, girl loves football and baseball, athlete, but that kinds of your categorical information give you a wrong decision in many situations. So next semester I'm teaching decision theory. So many of the decision theory, like, have you heard about Tversky? Tversky, 2002 Nobel Economic laureate. So they developed some of the new decision theory based on probability and psychology. Okay, you know the probability economics? Okay. And then using this decision theory, like a stereotype, so they can calculate the different decision. What decision we have to make based on the time or based on some kind of psychological stereotype. Such as another conceptual knowledge would be give a wrong implication to us is bird can fly. Some bird cannot fly, like kiwi, okay, ostrich, they can't fly. But if you categorize them as a bird, you believe they can fly. So that we have to remember separate way. Right? All the birds can fly except kiwi, something, ostrich, or whatever. So that is kind of, it's not perfect. So for example, this Ferrari. So one of the, the criminal psychology, witness theory say, probably week one I mentioned about witness theory, right? So when witnesses say they saw the Ferrari, so probably they believe that the accident comes from this Ferrari's high speed, even though that is not high speed, because Ferrari is faster, because we categorize them as a speed car, so that even though they are in the regular speed, the normal speed, they believe they are over speed. But you can't trust the witness, because they are stereotype. That stereotype comes from where? Categorical information. That's why you have to make a really nice top menu item. In your software design, you say file, edit, view, something, right? Right? So that is categorical information. You're already using the categorical information. So when you make a file, and then underneath the file, if you put something help, nobody can find it. Because they have a categorical information about file means new, open, save as. Printing is about the file, but if you put some wrong menus under the file, people can't understand it. Because they already have a categorical knowledge of file, edit, view, tools. Okay? That's why we have the survey before that. Right. So there's a two representation comes up. One is semantic network. I can just show the image. Okay, that is looks like semantic network. And then the other one is schema. Schema is kind of, hang on. Where is it? Likewise, this one. Okay, so it's not particular representation style, but what they say is, if we can represent information into schema or semantic way, we can categorize the information. Okay, I can give one more things about semantic network, and then tomorrow I can explain the schema more detail. Right. So point is how we make this conceptual knowledge to economic way, to make economic way remember many information. So one approach is semantic network. So semantic network representation used to encode conceptual knowledge as well as propositional knowledge, which we mentioned at the beginning of this lecture. Propositional one. Okay? So propose that people store information about various categories in network structure. That is assumption, and of course we have experimental supporting evidence, but idea is this one. So animal has a skin. Animal can move, animal eat, and animal breathe. One of the type of animal is bird. Bird has wing, bird has fly, bird can feathers. And then canary is the things, what? The one of the bird, right? So they have sing, they can sing, and it is yellow. Ostrich, but they can't fly, right? We have another node. Okay? So if you have many more nodes, that means your knowledge network is getting more difficult. Okay? That is kind of categorical information. Bird, it looks like it. They can share same feature. The fish have the same feature. Okay? Of course, salmon and shark have the same feature with the fish, but some of them might be different, such as ostrich share many of the level 2 information, like can fly, has wing, has feature, but only one of the exception is they can't fly. So that is probably our semantic network to memorize the category. Isn't it? That's why you're thinking about industrial engineering, right? Some OM, you know, statistics, something unusual, things like information design stuff, right? So you make some kind of categorical information. Get it? Right. But how we can prove it? Whether we have actually have this one? Nobody read the textbook? Huh? So one of the experiments from the textbook is trying to prove whether we actually have this kind of semantic network. So what they did is very simple experiment. The time, how long does it take to recall the information? Such as when they see canary, okay, this one. Okay, many of you will say, oh, they can sing very well. Okay? Canary has a feather. Okay, 3 sentences. Canary can sing, canary has feather, canary has skin. Okay, one thing, so I can finish it and then. Okay. So to prove whether we have a semantic network like that is this one. So we show to the participant 3 sentences. What? Canary has feathers. Canary has skin. And then we measure responding time. Okay, when they see canary can sing, how long does it take? Okay, big button, they just kick it, right? And then when they see the second sentence, right? And responding time. Okay? So if this one is right, which one could be the first? Level 1, level 3? Level 3. Oh, if this item is right, because that is more specific knowledge, so it should be much faster than this one. You never seen this kind of sentence, isn't it? Okay. You never seen, I mean, of course in Korean is the same thing. Not many sentences like that. So that we just measure response time. And then if this one is right, the most fast one, the fastest one should be this one, and second one, and third one. Experiment, prove it. Canary can sing is the fast. I need this kind of experimental design for your essay 4. Your cunning plan, smart idea. That's what I want to hire from you. Okay, competition. If you have a really good, nice design, I can use it. So, reward for you guys. Okay. Right, that is about the semantic network. And tomorrow, I can explain how the semantic network and schema is different, and then explain chapter 6 in working memory.